Welcome to an epic fight night. In the left corner we have Ezoic, and in the right corner we have Adthrive. Two great ad networks in an epic battle.
I have been using Ezoic ads across many of my sites for around 1.5 years, and I've also used Adthrive ads for around a year across some of my sites. In this video I'll show you some of the differences between the two ad networks, and I'll show you the numbers. I'm currently running Ezoic ads on 6 sites, and I also used Ezoic ads on a couple of sites that I sold recently. I'm also using Adthrive on a couple of sites. It's important to understand that all the different ad networks out there are using almost the same ad inventory. So 95% probably of the ads are all coming from Google. So it's using what we know as AdSense and Google Ad Exchange in order to show ads on your site. And that means that the differences are on the tech side of things and the reporting and so on, which we're going to look at in this video. But let's start now by comparing the numbers between the two ad networks and see how much money I'm earning with each one. Now we're inside Ezoic's big data analytics. It's a really cool place and I love what they have done here. It's by far the most extensive set of data I've seen with an ad network. I pull up the data here from February because right now we're in the middle of the coronavirus, and that has caused a pretty steep dive in earnings from the ad networks. And that's across the board. That goes for all ad networks. Here you can see the earning per 1,000 visitors. So that is always a little higher than the earning per 1,000 page views because some visitors see more than one page view. So here are 6 different sites, and as you can see here the average is around $24 and it's ranging from around $19 to $52, but most of my sites are between 19 and 23. So the reason why some websites will make you much more money from the same number of visitors or page views is because the competition between the brands that want to advertise on your site is much higher in some niches and for some topics. So let's say you had a website about credit cards, you will probably see numbers here in around $100 per 1,000 page views. Let's move over to Adthrive now and look at the numbers there. And I'll start by showing you how you can see what type of content is earning you the most money. This is inside Adthrive, and here you can only see the data for one website at a time. And this is also the data for February. If we go to this RPM per page, we can sort all our articles here by earnings and by RPM. So now we're looking at the revenue per 1,000 page views. This is a little confusing, but they like to report on different things. Sometimes we talk about earning per 1,000 page views, and sometimes it's earning per 1,000 visitors or sessions. So this article up here is earning me around $30 per 1,000 page views. And this article down here is only making half of that. So it's important to keep an eye on what kind of topics you find at the top here and make sure to write more of that type of content. So this website made around $6,000 or $7,000 in February, and the revenue per 1,000 page views on average is sitting at $30. So when we want to compare this data with Ezoic, we need to look at the revenue per session, as they call it, and over with Ezoic they call it revenue per 1,000 visitors. So a session or a visit is practically the same thing. So this website is averaging around $35 per 1,000 visitors. And if we scroll down here, we can see how it fluctuates a little bit from week to week and from month to month. We are in the beginning of the year here when we're looking at February, and over the year, the ad rates go up and up and up till they eventually reach the climax around Black Friday and Christmas. So January and February and March is what we call Q1, and that's always where we see the lowest ad revenue numbers. Now let's try and pull up the data from Ezoic and Adthrive side by side so we can do a real comparison here. Now we have Adthrive on the left and Ezoic on the right. So let's scroll down here so we can look at the revenue per 1,000 sessions, because that we can compare to Ezoic's revenue per 1,000 visitors. That's basically the same thing. So it's 35 here and it's averaging around 25 here. But that doesn't really mean that Adthrive is a better ad network. It just means that the site I have sitting with Adthrive is probably just a better audience or a better topic for advertisers with more competition, so the ad prices go up. So we can't really compare different websites across networks. But in a second I will show you how I moved one website from Ezoic to Adthrive, and that will give us better numbers. I really wanted to do a split test where I would show Ezoic ads to half of the audience on one of my sites and Adthrive ads to the other 50% of the traffic on my site. But Adthrive wouldn't do that. Ezoic was willing to do it, and they also offered to help with the technical side of things. And I'm absolutely sure it could be done. It's not that hard to do stuff like that. But Adthrive wouldn't do it. They also told me that if I was to leave the platform, I had to reapply. And as we're coming back to the application process with Adthrive, is not always as straightforward as it is with some of the other ad networks. To be honest, I'm quite disappointed with Adthrive that they didn't want to do this, because they were so upfront about how much better they would do with the numbers and so on, and how confident they were. So it's just a pity that they didn't want to put it to the test. So the thing is that the more visitors you have on the site, the better the ad network can work with the ad inventory to show the best ads. At least with Ezoic, that's what they say, and that's also what I've seen several times. So that's also why you need a decent amount of traffic, and why many ad networks will require you to have 30 or even 100,000 page views before you apply. Since we cannot put up this test and show them head to head how they would do in the test, the best data I have when comparing Adthrive and Ezoic are from a site that I moved from Ezoic to Adthrive as I reached 100,000 page views. This site was sitting with Ezoic for 6 months, and I was seeing RPMs around $25. After I moved the site to Adthrive, over a couple of months I saw the revenue go from around $25 per thousand page views to around $30 per thousand page views. But one thing that's important to remember here is that the traffic also grew a lot. So it went from 80 to 100 to 150,000 page views per month. And with Ezoic, I'm sure they would also have that more data to be able to know which ads to show to which users. So the thing is that with Ezoic, the system is learning with machine learning where and how to place those ads. So I'm pretty sure that if I took a site back to Ezoic, I would also see earnings around $30. So the numbers here are pretty much the same. I don't think you would see a huge spike or a bump in earnings if you're choosing to go from Ezoic to Adthrive or vice versa. And the truth is, we'll probably never know, because Adthrive won't let us test it. Now let's talk about page speed for a second. It's something that Google keeps bugging us about, both in Google Search Console and in Google Analytics, and it's definitely something that we need to pay attention to as publishers. And as soon as you place ads on your website, it will slow down the site. There's no way around it. And with Ezoic, you can use their speed tool, but it's a paid tool and it does cost some money. I think it starts from around $20 and up to $100 per month, depending on if you have 1 million visitors per month or if you're closer to 50,000 visitors per month. With Adthrive, I've also been able to see some really good numbers after I worked with the team in order to increase the page speed. We turned on what they call deferred ads, and that basically just means that everything on the page will load first, and when that's done loading and the whole text and images and everything in the content is loaded, then and only then will the ads start to load. So that means that the ads will be delayed a few seconds, which also means that you're losing a few percent of the revenue, because the ads are not shown as long as if they were loading immediately with the content. But when you're doing that, you can get numbers in the 80s or the 90s with Google Page Speed Insight. Let's look at the interfaces and the dashboards on the two ad networks. I would say in general, the Ezoic dashboard is really sleek and nice. They just completely redid the whole thing, and it's much faster and easier to work with now. And with Adthrive, we have a really simple and clean interface. That's good in some cases, but we're also lacking some data. One of the coolest features that I've been really happy to use with Ezoic for a long time is the ability to see which blog posts or which articles are earning you the most money. Recently, Adthrive also added this into their dashboard. I've been bugging them about it for a while, and now they have it. Before, I had to ask them to take out an Excel sheet for me, and it was almost useless because they only counted around, I think it was 20% of the traffic. So the numbers were so low that they could only do it for a small portion of my articles, because they needed a lot of traffic in order to show any data. And I would say it's by far the most important report to have with your ad network. You need to know exactly which content is earning you the most money. Now let's talk about some of the differences between the two ad networks when you're working with them on a daily basis. With Adthrive, they have a ticket system, which means that whenever you have a request, you need to create a ticket. They're using this Zendesk system, if you know the system. So that means that you're not getting any questions answered immediately. With Ezoic, I have 2 of my sales guys on Skype, which means I can just chat with them, and many times they'll be online and they'll answer me right away. And that's really cool. And that also means that I get to talk with the same person over and over again, and over a period of a couple of years. That's really nice because you will have a history with this person who actually knows your site, and they know exactly what we did on the site in the past. And with Adthrive and the ticket system, it's a new person helping you every time. And I'm not too happy about that because I like to develop a relationship with my key account managers. I like to work with one person over a long period of time in order to increase the earnings and make sure that we're making the most with what we've got. Another area where we see some differences between Ezoic and Adthrive is in the whole application process. With Adthrive, you apply and then over a week or 2 they get back to you with a yay or a nay. It's not like you get a lot of feedback. And I have some friends, other publishers, who got really frustrated because they were just turned down without any sort of explanation. Adthrive didn't give them the opportunity to go back and work on the site and fix some issues in order for them to reapply into the program. But with Ezoic, I haven't had any sites that didn't get approved like right away. If there's any problems, they'll let you know. And if you have some articles or some content sitting on the site that will not work with ads, they'll just ask you to either remove it or they'll just disable the ads on those pages and these URLs. That's just a way more agile and easier way to work with it. And also with Adthrive, you need 100,000 page views to get in with your first site. After you have the first site approved, you can typically get in around 50,000 page views. With Ezoic, I can often get in from 5,000 or 10,000 page views. And Ezoic recently told me that they're going to remove that limit altogether, which means that anybody can put ads on their site from the get-go. You don't have to wait until you have 10, 20, 30 or 100,000 page views. And this is the same with Mediavine. I think with Mediavine the limit is around 30 or 35,000 page views. So this is a good reason to test out Ezoic early on because you can always get in, and if they're removing that completely, it just means that you can test out ads much sooner and see those first pennies from your site. It's so encouraging when you get this very first paycheck, even if it's just $1 or $2. I mean, it's so exciting and so motivating to get that first check. So now I think it's time to wrap it up. For me personally, I like Adthrive and Ezoic, and as I showed you, the numbers are pretty similar. And there's some differences with the platform, but I just like to have 2 different ad networks with my sites because it enables me to see how different ad networks are working with things. And as long as I'm seeing great numbers, I mean, I'm happy. But I would say that if you like data and if you like digging into things and see how you can improve things, from a technical perspective, I would go with Ezoic because they have much better data. For example, this feature where you can see the word count per article right next to the earnings for this URL is just great because you will quickly spot if there's any correlation between how long the article is and how much money you're making with it. If you're serious about finding the best ad network for your site, then you should definitely check out this more in-depth review of Adthrive that I have up here. In that review, I go into much more detail and I show you every feature on the platform. And we also did a review about the Ezoic platform. Check out that review up here. So definitely go check those 2 out if you're getting serious about this, because in those videos I show you everything there is to see on the platform, and you will know after watching those 2 videos what's right for you. A quick side note, as I've been using Ezoic for quite a while, that also means that I've become friends with many of the people working within Ezoic. So I've said yes to become part of an expert panel who are advising them on new features and so on. And that means that I sometimes know what they're coming out with in the future. But that has in no way affected how I reviewed Ezoic versus Adthrive here. But just keep in mind that there might be some features that I know from inside Ezoic that I don't know inside Adthrive. So Adthrive might be coming out with some really cool stuff that I don't know about. And also, this video is not sponsored by either Adthrive or Ezoic for that matter. Subscribe to my channel if you like what I'm doing here. That means a lot to me. And I have new videos coming up every week. And remember to give this video a thumbs up. See you guys next time.